What's up, you crazy exiles? Welcome back. I'm Cyclone9, and today we're going to be talking about some more Path of Exile 2. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the trade website and how to best utilize it to either purchase yourself some very nice leveling gear so you can blast through the campaign on your second character you're looking to try out, or how to upgrade your existing gear so you can reach the pinnacle content in the game, be clearing tier 18 maps with map bosses, go and hunt down citadels, breachstones, simulacrums, all of that good stuff. How do we utilize the trade site to find either budget gear or even some high-end upgrades to your existing gear? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Going to provide live examples for you to utilize, and we're going to be talking about Witch Minion Infernalist because that's the build I'm currently running. And now, one caveat. This is unscripted, it's improvised, so if I miss something critical, definitely put it down in the comments. I'm going to try and hit all the important points and be as nuanced as I can, but it's a ton of information and I want it to be accessible to new players as well. So hopefully I'll be able to walk that line and hit the mark for you guys. Let's get right into it. So first, let's talk about what should be your priority on your gear. What is the goal? What is your objective? So I just want to talk briefly about resistances. So as a general rule of thumb, as you reach endgame and you're starting to progress in maps, your number one goal above, unless you're running like a glass cannon build and you're like, hey, I'm not going to be touched because I'm exploding the whole map and that's my goal. And if, someone does actually hit me, I might die, but c'est la vie. Aside from builds like that, your number one priority should be to max all of your elemental resistances and get as close to maxing your chaos resistance as possible. So by default, the max elemental resistances you can have is 75%. If you have something in your build that may give you additional max resistances, that is something very powerful. As you can see, my max resistances here is 76%. Even though I'm over capped on my elemental resistances, it's going to go back to whatever my max is, which is 76% on all of the elementals. I'm still currently working on my chaos resistance. Chaos resistance is pretty hard to acquire on gear. It's less likely that you'll roll it on gear, and they're typically lower numbers in terms of the percentage when you do find it on gear. But that should be a priority as well. There's a lot of chaos damage in this game, and you can definitely get one shot by it. So try and get your chaos res up to the max 75% as well. In addition to your resistances, you definitely want to take into account what is your next layer of defense. What type of defenses are you prioritizing in your specific build? For me, I'm an energy shield stacker. Life is also very valuable on the Infernalist because in the Ascendancy, you can convert some of your life by reserving it into having more spirit, which for me equates to higher DPS because I can summon more minions. What is your specific build calling for? Are you a life stacker? Are you an energy shield stacker? Are you a mana stacker? Are you going for Archmage where mana equals damage and running mind over matter where you take damage via your mana? Is mana a source of defense? Is it also a source of offense? It can be any of those things. But what is the priority for your specific build? Next, are you stacking armor? Are you stacking evasion? Are you prioritizing block? In my case, as I mentioned, I'm prioritizing energy shield, as you can see. So that's what all of the bases are on my gear. They're energy shield bases. Hence, I have basically no armor, no evasion, and I'm not running a shield, so I have no block. But you have to determine what is the priority for your defenses in your build. All right, let's get right into the gear. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be using my build, the Minion Witch Infernalist, as the example. We're going to start with your primary weapon slot, and in my case, it's going to be a Scepter. So I'm just going to go over this quickly because even if you already understand this information, repetition is great for learning, and some of you may not be aware of this yet. But if you hover over a weapon that has modifiers on it and hold the Alt key, it's going to tell you a lot of information here. On the left-hand side, right over here, you can see that They're broken down into prefixes. Well, first off, we'll talk about the implicit. This above this little golden line, this modifier right here is called the implicit. This cannot be changed, and it's determined by what the actual item base is. So in this case, it's a rattling scepter. If you drop any rattling scepter, this implicit is going to be the same aside from the level of skeletal warrior that it gives you. And as I mentioned, even if you're crafting on it, you throw a vol orb on it, it's going to be unchanged. That's referred to as the implicit. Next, it's broken down to prefixes and suffixes. For each piece of gear, you can have a maximum of 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. That's all you can get. 6 mods. On the right-hand side, you're going to see what tier of that mod is currently on your gear. So in my case, this is a tier 5 mod right here that's giving me flat physical damage to my allies. The spirit mod that I have here, it's a hybrid, it's spirit and mana, is a tier 6 mod. Now, we're going to get into POE2 database so you can determine what the highest tier of any given mod is. And as it goes up in tier, it changes the maximum and minimum rolls of that particular stat. So let's go check out Path of Exile 2 database. The reason why I'm coming here is because it's important to know what I can actually roll on my scepter, so I can prioritize what is the most important thing for my build. Once you get to POE2 database, you can come up here to modifiers, click modifiers, and then down here you can select whatever piece of gear you're wanting to check out. So in our case, we're doing one-handed weapons, and we're looking at scepters. Now, right down here you can see all of the different prefixes that can roll on a scepter, as well as all of the different suffixes that can roll on a scepter. There's also some more information here. It shows you what the tag is for that modifier, how many tiers exist for that modifier, so you can find out what is the top tier for that stat, and what item level is required to roll that stat. So on an item, if you hold Alt, you can see what the item level is. The higher monsters you're fighting, the higher eye level items you're going to be dropping. All right, let's look at what we're prioritizing in terms of scepters. So for scepters, the main thing that you're looking for is percent increased spirit as far as their prefixes. That's going to give you more minions, which makes you have more damage. So that's the number one thing. You can also get the hybrid roll that has increased spirit with mana, whereas at the highest tier, you're getting all the way up to 61 to 65% increased spirit. So that's going to be your number one priority on your prefixes. A lot of these other things are pretty decent. There's not a lot of bad rolls in terms of prefixes on scepters. Flat damage is really, really good. It's especially good early in the campaign because flat damage will just scale up your damage per second really quickly and really easily. Percent increased damage is also pretty good to have. Accuracy can be good early. I don't find it to be that useful later on. It seems like my minions do have great accuracy. I don't really have any in my tree or on my gear, and it seems just fine. So that's prefixes. Now let's check out suffixes. The number one thing that you're wanting to have on your suffix, and the most important thing by far on the scepter, including spirit. So it's going to be spirit, and it's also going to be +2 level of all minion skills. So as you can see here, you can roll all the way up to +5. I'm currently running a +4 scepter, and I'm killing tier 18 map bosses with +4 to boss difficulty. It's taking a little while. It's not just melting them in seconds anymore as you increase that map boss difficulty level. It's now taking 30 seconds, a minute, I don't know, somewhere around there. They're not just instantly dying anymore, so I have room to upgrade my damage by getting a +5, but those tend to be really expensive. I was running +3 to level of all minion skills all the way up to running tier 16 waystones with irradiation and corruption, making them effectively tier 18s. So you can do it, and these scepters are very cheap on the trade site, as we'll see momentarily. So just to recap, the two most important things to have on your scepter are increased spirit and +level to all minion skills. In addition, there's a lot of good suffixes, and there's also ones that are complete burners. But I'm going to be highly prioritizing attack speed. I'm running skeletal arsonists, which are attack-based, meaning they scale off of attack speed. I believe the frost skeleton, frost mage, whatever it is, they are based on cast speed. So if you're running those, maybe you want to scale cast speed. I'm doing attack speed. Next, as you get further into the end game, and once you start getting any passive nodes on your skill tree that help with critical hit chance and critical hit damage, these two modifiers right here, allies get increased critical hit chance, allies get increased critical damage bonus, become very important. If you're not running a lot of crit stuff yet, I wouldn't worry about these, but for late game, these are going to be pivotal for increasing your damage over time. Or, I mean, your damage per second. Early on in the game, minions have percent increased maximum life. That is really helpful because they just tend to get laid out early in the campaign if they're hit by anything. So that's worth noting. Again, final recap. You're wanting Spirit as a prefix, plus to minion skills as your suffix, and then stack damage otherwise. Flat damage, attack speed, critical hit chance, critical hit damage. I'm not going to do this for every piece of gear, but if you really want to know how to optimize your build, you need to know what you can roll on it and what you're looking for in terms of priorities. So that covers that information for Scepters. Cool, so let's head over to the trade site, find us a baller Scepter so we can be blasting the baddies. First thing, we're going to come up here, we're going to type in rattling, because we're wanting a rattling Scepter. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here into the stat area, and we're going to type the tilde key by holding shift, hitting the key above tab. What this does is you can just start typing. It doesn't have to be in the right order, and it's going to allow you to find the stat you're looking for a lot quicker. So if we just start typing in spirit, we're going to see percent increased spirit. If you remember, that's going to be one of our main priorities. If we hold the tilde or hit a tilde, then type in minion, we're going to see plus to level of all minion skills. That's a huge stat priority. And those are the main two. We are going to add one other thing. We're going to type in the tilde. We're going to type in allies and attack. Just start typing it anyway. And allies in your presence have percent increased attack speed. That's also going to be a priority for what I'm looking for. Also, depending on where you're at in the game, you may want to gate it by requirements and level. So if you're early on in the campaign, maybe you just want to gate it by a level 40 because either you're close to that or, at it or just over. So you can gate it by that and only see scepters you can wear currently. Or you can leave it open-ended or gate it on the low end. So you say, hey, I'm looking for an endgame scepter. It needs to be eye level 75 or higher, right? And that way you're only seeing grant skill level 18 skeletal warrior minions if you're looking for that endgame scepter. So we didn't actually put in a number to plus to level of all minion skills, so we're going to go and do that now. We're looking for 3 minimum, and we'll search there. Here's something you can do that's pretty cool. You can sort by whatever stat you're looking at. So I want to see the ones that have the highest increase to spirit. Well, apparently the highest you can get here is 84% because they have both modifiers. They have the hybrid modifier and the standard increase to spirit. Well, that's 25 divine. That is more than I'm looking to pay for a scepter right now. So let's go back to filters. And we can come down here to buyout price and you can change it. Say I'm at the stage where I don't want to be spending divines, for example. You could do that. You could say I only want to see things that are priced in exalted orbs. Let's try it again. And search by the one that has the highest level of spirit. Well, that's 70x. Maybe that's approachable to you. But again, if it's not, you can come down here and say, I only want to see scepters that have a maximum buyout price of 20 exalted orbs. Hit search again, and then sort by the highest percentage of spirit. So now I've got a scepter here. It's giving me plus 18, or it's giving me level 18 skeletal warrior minions. It's giving me 49% increased spirit. Of course, it has plus 3 to level of all minion skills, and I also specified I want it to have increased attack speed for my allies. So this is a perfectly fine scepter. It has mana on it, has really low flat damage, and it's got some strength, which is not terrible because you do need some strength in your build. So if you get it here, you won't necessarily need to get it on your belt or a piece of jewelry to run all the support gems you're wanting. Of course, this player is AFK, so who knows if he's going to respawn. But say if I did want to buy that, I just click this button and it'll automatically whisper that player in game. So we can start initiating that trade. You can scroll down and look for some more stuff here. 48% increased spirit. Again, mana. Now this has a lot higher flat damage roll, which is pretty awesome. That scales damage pretty well. Again, it's got a matching 8%, and it's got +3 to level of minion. That one's going to be 20x. Here's another one for 20x. 20x again. So all of these are pretty decent. This one you could slam with exalts a couple times, which is cool. Or at least one time, I mean, because it only has 5 modifiers on it currently, which is nice. Here's one for 10 exalts. So right now I'm searching by the highest percentage spirit, but say for example I just want to see the lowest priced ones, I can hit the search button again and not prioritize any of the stats. But say, okay, this one's only 2 exalts, but 23% increased spirit isn't enough for my taste. So I can come up here to the filters again, say I only want to see ones that have at least 35% increase to spirit. And as a minimum, I actually want 9% increased attack speed. And there we go. So the minimum price for this is going to be 15 exalts. And it's got some flat cold, accuracy, 9% increased attack speed. It's got some mana regen, pretty low on that. So again, but it could be a little bit helpful. Here we got 41% increased spirit, a higher mana roll, big flat lightning damage added, which is great. 11% increased attack speed and +3 to level of all minion skills and intelligence for only 15 exalts. This, honestly, you could roll with the Scepter all the way up to tier 15, tier 16, tier 18 maps for sure. So just as an exercise, I kind of want to see what would be an upgrade for me. So I have 31 spirit. I have increased damage. I have 16% increased attack speed and 4 to minion skills. So let's go say we need a minimum of 31. That's fine. We want a +4, and we need to have a minimum of 15. Or let's do 16 since that's the exact number. And see what we can find now. Are we going to find one for 20 exalt buyout? Probably not. And clearly we were not able to do that, so we'll just delete that. We're still looking at exalts, or if we switch back to relative, so it's going to show us everything. Now let's take a look. So for me to get an upgrade just with the stats I selected, spirit, minion, skills, and increased attack speed, it looks like we're at a minimum of 2 divine. But what's worth mentioning, if you don't specifically select that you want to have exalted orbs as your buyout price, the trade site right now is kind of messed up because it's valuing divines at like 6 or 7 exalts, which is stupid and needs to be updated. Once GGG gets back from holiday, they will update it because, as we all know, divine orbs are worth a lot more than 6 or 7 exalts. So it's worth doing. What's worth doing is seeing, okay, this is a minimum price, 2 divines. Well, maybe not. If we keep scrolling down, maybe we can find one that has exalted orbs as the buyout price. In this instance, we cannot. Because we are kind of looking for a more endgame scepter, but it's always worth checking that. So scrolling past or changing this to exalted orbs to see if you can see one for exalted orbs instead of divines. We'll keep it on relative, we'll search again, and we'll look at some of these. So this has a lot higher spirit than mine. It doesn't have as much flat damage. So this really wouldn't be much of an upgrade. I don't care that much about life at this point. I'm more prioritizing damage. So let's look at the next one. 32 spirit, not super high. It's got a lot more flat physical than mine does. And it also has that strength that's kind of needed for my build. That could be a possibility, but again, not a huge upgrade. 37% spirit, increased percentage damage, some flat fire, attack speed. Not a huge upgrade unless I'm, needing additional mana regen, which can be helpful. But again, not what I'm looking for. 51, that's pretty substantially higher than mine, and this hasn't even been qualitied. So if you add quality to a scepter, it increases the amount of spirit it gives you. So that's worth noting here. This one has a higher percentage increased spirit, so when I quality it up, it's going to be a higher amount of spirit it's giving me than this one. So you guys basically get the gist of it. Let's check out what, if any of these have tier 5 plus level to all minion skills. And look at that. The minimum for that is 10 divine if you want plus 5 with spirit and attack speed. So this would definitely be an upgrade for me. The minion plus to minion skills is huge. That ramps up your damage for all your minions, which I'm running SRS as well, Raging Spirits. So all of my minions get increased damage. And survivability, so it helps with my Infernal Hound as well. So it's a big stat, but it's going to be a minimum of 10 divine if this person actually responds. A lot of times the lowest priced ones you see could potentially be people price fixing. I'm not going to get too in depth on that, but oftentimes it's not going to be the first listing that has the lowest price that you're even going to be able to find. So down here we got one for 21 divine, and that seems more accurate, but again, this person listed it 35 minutes ago. It's possible people are spamming him right now to get this. I don't know, at 21 divine he may not be receiving a ton of messages. That seems like a somewhat realistic price, but then it jumps to 50 divine, and as you can see down here, the only other one is also listed for 50 divine, and it was listed 11 hours ago. This person also threw a vol on here to see what would happen. It looks like it didn't change anything specifically. Someone wants to buy a 14 Exalt item from me, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll be right back, guys. Oh, hey, look at that. They want this pair of boots that only has 20% increased movement speed. This is probably one of the ones I crafted on my last crafting video. So here we go. 14 Exalts. Gonna make that trade, gonna be happy about it, gonna send this guy on his merry way with his new pair of boots. Also wanted to mention that pair of boots that I crafted in my last crafting video that I priced for 19 divine. This is really important to mention. I was just doing quick price check using my overlay, which is super handy for a quick price check. But if you want a more accurate assessment of what an item is worth, you want to go to the trade site and actually look at the comparable items. After that video, that's exactly what I did, and then it ended up decreasing the price of my boots pretty rapidly, and they sold for 6 divine. I have the video of it if you guys are curious about that. Still printing money on my investment for my crafting on that item. So just to finalize this section on the trade site in regards to finding a really good scepter for your witch minion infernalist, I dropped it back down to +3, which as I mentioned is going to get you to tier 15 maps pretty easily. If we do that search for ones that still have increased attack speed on them as well, and maybe flat damage is better, but look at this one. It's got flat damage, it's got attack speed, it's got spirit, it's got +3 to minions. That's 10 exalts. Got another one for 10, 11, 15. So you can easily get a scepter that's going to carry you pretty far into the end game for 10 to 20 exalts. So that's definitely promising for you guys. Let's go ahead and check out the next piece of gear. Actually, before moving on, I just want to do a couple other things. There's definitely an argument to be made that percent increased damage to my allies is higher priority than attack speed. So if you want to go over that route, you could uncheck this, make sure it has a percent increased damage on your scepter. Or if you want to use some of the more advanced stuff, and this is really useful, we'll be doing this more on different types of gear. I could come down here and add a stat group, add a count, and then add flat physical, flat fire, flat cold, and flat lightning. So what I've done here is I've added all the different varieties of flat damage that could be added to my minions on a scepter, and I could specify that I want 2 out of the 4 of these to appear on my scepters. I could change the mins on these, so say I want 5 minimum, just as an example, do a search, and now I have a scepter that has increased spirit plus to minion skills. This one happens to also have flat or increased percentage attack speed, and then it's got 2 different ones that add flat damage to my minions. I could change this to do 1 out of these 4 and have it also have increased damage. So you can kind of find out what's optimal for your build and mess around with this sort of stuff. These are priced for 1 divine. If I scroll down, I'm anticipating finding one priced for exalts. There we go, 10 exalts. So again, that's that trick. They're not valuing divines very highly on the trade site right now, so you got to make sure you scroll down past those to see if you can get one for exalted orbs. Or, again, as I mentioned originally, come down here, change the buyout price to exalted orbs. And that's kind of a little preview. Maybe this is not the optimal search. You're going to have to set it up however you want, but I just wanted to preview this functionality. So it works really well with resistances too, or you can do a weighted sum, which we'll get into for resistances. But essentially, I set up a new stat group, added count, and then I picked my 4 stats, and I said I want to have 1 out of these 4 on the Scepter, or I could say I want 2 out of these 4 on the Scepter, and I can come and find that as well. So those are some more advanced techniques you can use to really fine-tune what you're looking for and get the best value on a Scepter. Next, we're going to talk about the energy shield base helmet that I'm using for my minion build, and we're not going to go deep into POE2 DB. You know how to do that now. You can go do it on your own time. I'm just going to get straight to what I'm prioritizing for this build, and what I am prioritizing is high amounts of energy shield, which is actually secondary to the most important thing, which is plus to level of all minion skills. The max you can get on that is +2, which is what I have. And then the secondary priorities after those are going to be resistances, all the resistances you get. As you can see, my helmet's pretty trash, so I could use an upgrade. And then if you can squeeze in rarity, rarity is phenomenal, so definitely do that. Let's see how we can find a nice minion helm on the trade site. Here we are on the trade site. First thing we're going to specify is what we're looking for. We're looking for a helmet, but not just any helmet. We want a helmet that has energy shield, and we don't want a hybrid one, so we don't want any armor on our helm, and we don't want any evasion. We're looking for an energy shield helm. We'll come back and revisit this, but right now I'm just going to put it like that so you can see only the energy shields bases are going to be popping up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do minion, level to all minion skills. We're going to put 2 minimum. And then we're going to put in our handy dandy weighted sum. So this is a new feature for some of you, and I'm going to show you how you can utilize it. So we're going to add all of our resistances here. So we're going to add fire, lightning, cold, chaos, and all elemental resistances. So what we're telling the trade site is we're going to weight these a certain way, and we just want to find items that have the highest weighted value out of any combination of these. So for fire resistance, we're going to weight it as 1. For lightning, we'll weight it as 1. For cold, we'll weight it as 1. For chaos, I'm going to weight it as 2 because I prioritize chaos higher, and typically it's lower rolls, so I can put 2 there if I want. For elemental, we're going to put in a 3 because it gives you 1% of each of the 3 elemental resistances, equaling a total of 3. So let's see what happens if we just search by that. So when we search for that, we're not getting very useful information for us or very useful items popping up immediately. But what you can do is you can come down here to where it says sum, and you can sort by the highest sum. So now I've sorted energy shield base helmets that all have +2 to level of minion skills and offer me the highest amount of resistances based upon how I weighted them. So you can see it's 45 of fire and 25 of chaos. So that's a large number. I'm not positive you can even roll all res on a helmet. And as I'm scrolling through these, I don't think that's even possible. So you can scratch that, but I'll just throw it in there as an example. It's good for the example. But the other thing is we're wanting a high energy shield helm. So maybe this is much too low. What is the highest you could roll? You could roll a 510. Wow, that's corrupted, and it's socketed with increased armor, evasion, energy shield. So that seems a little bit out of our price range, and maybe we don't need the tippity tip top. But let's see what my current helm is. My helm right now has 200 energy shield, and that's pretty decent. I mean, if you look at my total energy shield, I have 9.5k, which is definitely no slouch on that number right there. So if we come back into the trade site, pop in 200 minimum energy shield here, and then hit search, and then prioritize by the highest sum, we're going to get, here's a energy shield that's 300. Of course, it's got the +2 to level of minion skills, and then it's got 2 different resistances of a very high value. Well, this is 10 divine. I don't want to spend 10 divine. Maybe I only want to spend exalted orbs, and maybe the max I want to spend is 50. So we go and change that. Can we find anything like that? Of course we can, but we want to search by the highest sum. And look at, we've got 29 fire, 18 chaos, +2 to resistances, and you may be wondering why 169 is still showing up here for energy shield when I typed in I want a minimum of 200. Well, what the trade site does is something kind of clever. It says, well, if you were to quality this up 20 to 20%, the max percent, the total energy shield you would get is 203. So you can see that it still shows that value here, which is very helpful for us in our search. The next thing I want to show you is, hey, maybe you really needed to have something specific in terms of resistances because you're looking to hit your cap on one of those. So you can come back over here to the top outside of the weighted sum and say, well, especially when you're min-maxing your gear and you're altering just a specific piece, maybe you say, hey, I needed to have a 20 minimum fire resistance in order to hit my max fire. So that needs to be mandatory, but I can still weight these as a sum as well to try and find the most amount of resistances and the best bang for buck. So I'll do that search, organize it by sum again, and see all of the results are going to have at least 20 fire resistances that pop up, and it show me the highest amount of resistances based upon my weighting of any of these helms as well. So we got one for 50 exalt, 40, 40, got one for 30 here. Not high on the sum rating. You can see it's got 39 fire res, so it rates it at a 39 sum because we weighted fire resistance at 1. So that is how you would go about this. Again, if you need to change the price in terms of what you're looking for, you could go down here, change it to 30 exalts, see what we can find here. And again, since we put in the 20 fire resistance as a mandatory one, we may not be finding the best value in terms of total percentage of elemental resistances. So if I turn that off again, let's see what we can find now. Sort by sum. And now it's showing me something that has cold and chaos being rated a lot higher, or a higher sum of things, because it doesn't have the mandatory requirement of having 20% fire. This one's already socketed with 12 fire res. So maybe that's not ideal until we get that patch that allows us to change the runes. Yeah, another discussion. At any rate, here's one for 20 exalts. So that's an easy way of finding what you need on your helm. You can also, sort by energy shield, as I mentioned, but then you can't sort by sum simultaneously. So it's better to sort by sum if you're using weighted sum, and then come back here and tinker with these numbers if you need to change it. So say you want more energy shield, change it to 220. See if we can find anything for that price range we put in, and we indeed can. And we'll change the sum. That other helm that was a lot better than this one didn't pop up anymore because it didn't meet the energy shield criteria. So you can mess around with this and find out what's optimal for you. And the best part about using a weighted sum is, you're going to find the best bang for your buck using something like this, rather than saying I need specifically fire, cold, or even using a count where you're like, I want 2 out of 3 resistances. This is a better way to just find the maximum amount of resistances. Again, you could change this to 1 if you want, if you're not prioritizing chaos, or leave it at 2, or say you really need to prioritize fire resistance higher. There's an ascendancy in which in Infernalist where part of damage is converted to fire damage, so you get a higher bang for buck out of your fire resistance. So we could change that, now rate by sum, and you're going to see that it's prioritizing fire resistance heavily. I don't really recommend that because you're basically prioritizing it 2 to 1 for other resistances, but it's just an example of how you can change things up. If you're pricing an item, this is a good little detour here because we are talking about the trade site overall and how to use it. Say for example, you have 30 fire res and you have 20 lightning resistance. Well, that's 50 total elemental resistance. You could gate this by saying, I only want to see items that have a max sum of 50. So instead of just finding items to compare yours to price it that only have the specific elemental resistances, they could have any combination of the elemental resistances up to a similar number of what your item is. So that's a useful technique in pricing. If you guys get my gist. If you have any questions about that, hopefully it was clear and understandable. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Let's move on to the next item. Next, we're going to talk about the focus. So, guys, another caveat. I don't claim to have the best build at all. A lot of people are running shields here. You know, for me, a focus has worked wonderfully. To each their own. This isn't a build guide. I don't know what is the most optimal. You'll have to do your own research and see what you prefer. For me, I'm running a focus. I have some jewels that increase the value of defenses on my focus. I also have some skills in the passive tree that are increasing that as well. So I'm getting a lot of value out of my focus. And that's what I'm using for my build. The stat priorities, the mod priorities on your focus are going to be high energy shield and resistances. Pretty simple. Let's go set it up in the trade site. All right, here we are. We're going to be looking for a focus. We're going to be looking for a min 300 energy shield on our focus. And we're going to set up another weighted sum. Again, I just want to show you how to do this again. So repetition is learning, right? All right, we'll just do resist, control A, C, fire res, lightning res, cold res, chaos, and all res. We're going to weight them at 1, 1, 1 for all the elementals. Going to rate chaos at 2. Going to rate all res at 3. And yeah, let's see what we get here. Let's search for the highest sum. And let's gate it by price. A lot of you are going to be looking in the Exalted Orb price range. Sort by sum again, and you can see you got 25 exalts right here for look at this. After qualitying it up, it's going to have 309 energy shield, and it's going to have 43 fire, 45 cold, and 13 chaos. Now, it also has a high percentage increased lightning damage, which isn't useful for my build, but it may be useful for some. The other thing I want to emphasize again, if you're trying to fill specific resistance priorities, or gaps, I should say, in your build to reach that cap, you can always come in here, specify the amount that you need for that particular resistance. Say I need 15 minimum lightning, and then do another search. So you're making sure to fill that gap, but still getting good value on the other resistances that you're finding here. This is 200 exalts. This one down here is only 20. You can change the buyout price again. Say I want 50 exalt maximum to be spending on this. So always search by sum and go, hey, okay, here we go, 20 exalts. This one goes to 320 energy shield, fire, lightning, and chaos. Pretty damn good. Shouldn't be that hard for me to find an upgrade for my gas focus. Do I even need that int? Oh my god, embarrassing. So we'll come back in here. Let's throw in 320 for energy shields and see what comes up. Sort by sum. This one's 320 exactly, the same one that's still popping up. Do I just want to buy this right now? This guy's AFK. Probably won't even come and sell it to me. Down here we got one for 35 exalts. So guys, again, if this is out of your price range, just come down here and adjust it. Say you need one for 10 or less. That's what's great about using a weighted sum. You can just find, obviously, a bunch for 1 exalt, but then you can find the highest weighted sum for your price range. Here's one at 5 exalts that has 324 energy shield and a bunch of resistances. It also has mana. You know, this is fantastic. I honestly don't know what I'm doing with my life. I should upgrade my focus. All right, let's move on to the next item. Actually, again, before we move on, I want to show you one additional kind of tip and trick here. So if I was really trying to upgrade my focus, a good way of going about that, finding out kind of what you need, is if you remove it, let's check out what I have over here for resistances now. So I have a huge gap in my fire. To cap that out, I'm going to need 32%. Yeah, well, actually 33% because my max resistance for fire is 76. I need 10 lightning and then as much chaos as I can. So we'll put 10 lightning. And there we go. So now if I search by that, I'm going to gate this by 50 exalts. And then I'm going to search by the highest sum. And now I got one here that's giving me additional cold damage, which I don't need. But it's got 320 energy shield. That's an upgrade. It's got a bunch of chaos, and it hasn't been socketed. So I could socket in more chaos. And it fills my resistance gap, so I'm still going to remain at cap. In fact, this is going to over cap me. So I can come and get this for 20 exalts, theoretically, if this guy will actually sell it to me. But he is AFK. So down here, 24. This only has 5 mobs on it. So I could slam an exalt on this and possibly get more energy shield. It already has 3 suffixes, so it'd have to be something that's a prefix. So that's pretty cool. I could get that for 24 exalts. He listed it 2 minutes ago. Oh, and again, you can see all my minions disappearing. The other thing you want to take into account is the stats, the attributes that you have. So it's entirely possible I need this 27 int to run the level of skill gems I have for my minions. So that's another thing you want to take into account, is if you need attributes on any of your items. If you do need attributes, you can come in here, put it in this upper category where it's mandatory, not part of the weighted sum, and say, hey, I also need 15 int, or whatever it may be. And still sort by sum, the highest sum, and then find what you need. So hopefully that's helpful, guys. We're going to move on to the next item now. Actually, I'm looking at the length of this video, and I decided I'm just going to cut it off here. This isn't a build guide. You don't need to know what I'm doing for each piece of gear. If you really want to build an update guide thingy, you can let me know in the comments, or you can just come and watch me stream live and ask all the questions that you want. I'm on Twitch at Cyclone9, or you can always catch me here on YouTube as well. Let's do a little recap of what we've learned today. So, always go to POE2 DB, check out all the prefixes and suffixes for that particular item's slot, and determine what is the highest priorities for you. Then come to the trade site, search for the item type that you're looking for. You can gate it by things like energy shield, armor, spirit. You can get spirit on armor for, an energy shield base, so that's one of the priorities for body armor. You can come down here and gate it by price. You can gate it by currency type. So say you only want to pay exalted orbs, say you only want to spend 3. Well, you can come and do that. Over here on the right hand side, you have at the top your stat filters. These are going to be mandatory if you have them selected. For example, you need 15 intelligence minimum. That is mandatory. You can then come down and do a weighted sum, which allows you to prioritize any of these things based upon the total number on any given item and see what the highest sum is and get a really good value using that. You could come down and create a count where you need 2 out of 4 of any given stats, as we gave an example for as well. So that pretty much covers everything I wanted to. If you're wondering now at this point, what the F, dude, finish the video. Well, welcome to my channel. Come ask me questions while I'm streaming live, or put questions in the comments. I'm reading them all and responding still. And with that, I will leave you with a song. A song? Yes, a song. WTF. Here I have my trusty ukulele. I hope you guys enjoy. Wise men say only fools rush into citadels, and I can't help falling in love with POE2. Peace out, guys.